All right, guess who's back? Codes here. I'm going to be giving everybody in the league a brief rundown of what free agency looks like. I know that we've got some new guys still. This is their first offseason with us, but on 3-1, any RFA decisions or holdout decisions will be due, and anybody with expiring in their league note is going to get cut from rosters. Everyone still has roster moves. I think the only person that doesn't have any left would be Cam. Um, but I believe everyone else at least has one or two roster moves left. I know some people haven't used any at all yet. I think like Rick, for example, only has Joe Milton expiring on his team. So if he wants to re-sign Joe Milton, then he would use a roster move to do so. But otherwise, gonna get cut on 3-1, and by that time, I think it's going to be a few days for the RFA process, depending on how many people get RFA tagged. Um, but then, however long that takes, I believe the start of NFL free agency is like March 11th, which would mean that that's when our vet auction starts. I think that's correct in the bylaws. I haven't read it in a minute. But yeah, that's what we're looking at so far. So you know, a little less than a minute rundown on that while Blind's busting his ass at Edward Jones. Um, so our quarterbacks, We'll just do like a free agency preview. This is obviously subject to change because teams still have roster moves remaining, and if I name a player that is not currently on waivers or free agency, um, then I'll note that with the team logo. So, for example, our number one quarterback we've got right now, I guess one and two could be interchangeable, but top free agent quarterback right now is Joe Burrow. He's technically still Chase has his rights still until he decides to either sign him or let him walk. If he wants to sign him, I think it's like a 300 wide runner R unless he franchise tags him, which would then disgruntle him. So we'll see what is the decision there. But Burrow number one, number two Lamar Jackson. When like Flynn, I guess realistically you could have you take your pick as who you think's the number one free agent quarterback right now. But both are obviously pending. If Chase and if Flynn both re-sign these guys, franchise tag them, what have you, they're obviously not going to be in the vet auction pool. Next up, we've got Malik Willis and Justin Herbert. 3 and 4. Willis obviously has looked really good in his spot starts for the Packers. Would not be surprised if he's a starting QB somewhere else. I'm still kicking him for dropping him when I owned him for $1. Um, Justin Herbert next on the list. I know that we've got some haters, and I mean he hasn't really done anything in his career. I know Cam will shout that out in the chat, but he is also a free agent. He is still well. Actually, Unicorn holds Willis's rights. To backtrack a bit, and then Justin Herbert, his rights are held by Allen. We'll see what Allen wants to do with Herbert. I mean, I think that's also like a 300 Y run OR, which is not nice. But I mean, I don't really know it's looking like. Allen is leaning towards full rebuild, which means Herbert could hit the market, and if he does, uh, you know, I mean, serviceable starting quarterback for fantasy anyway, on the market at number 4 or 5. Next up, we got the old guys: Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Joe Flacco. I mean, these guys. Rodgers might play again with the Steelers now they signed McCarthy. Kirk Cousins might get cut by the Falcons, and maybe he goes back to play for Minnesota because they want to bring in a vet, and JJM doesn't seem like he's the answer. So, um, Rodgers is currently with Chase. Cousins is currently with Rudy. Was off sides, and then I think Flacco might just be in the free agent pool. So Flacco is probably right now the number one quarterback on free agency, which is telling you a lot about how bad the QB class is for free agency at this point. A couple other names: Justin Fields and Geno Smith. Geno's probably cooked, and Justin Fields might also be cooked. But for fantasy, he could, have. I mean, if he does play somewhere, even if he just gets a backup job and he does end up seeing the field, uh, could could produce depending on how much rushing yardage he gets, because we know his passing is not his passing is worse than Hurts. All right, just they're not they shouldn't even be in the same sentence. Um, Moving on, we'll go to running backs. Running backs actually are looking really promising. However, a lot of these are still owned. Like the rights are still owned by some of the teams for the next 20 or so days. Christian McCaffrey, probably the number one on this list. I have CMC and Taylor kind of like one and two because Jonathan Taylor had a great year and CMC is getting old. I think he'll be like 30 by the time next football season comes around. So CMC, number one right now, but again, Chase still owns CMC's rights. That's another hefty Y1OR cost, though. Not sure if he's going to want to just try to get RFA rights or franchise tag them to bring that down, but then again, you're dealing with disgruntling them, making them not want to sign with you again. So you might just let McCaffrey hit the market. We'll find out. Jonathan Taylor, K. Miggs, Brownout owns his rights currently, but Brownout is kind of cap strapped. So I'm guessing Taylor's going to hit the market. We shall see. Brees Hall is up next. Brees Hall to the Chiefs would definitely skyrocket his value. K. Miggs also owns Brees Hall's rights, but again, cap strapped. Not sure if he'll be able to retain one or both. We'll have to find out. Derrick Henry is also a free agent. He's currently owned by the Liquidators as well, which I think his wide owner cost is a lot cheaper to retain than CMC, so it's more reasonable to expect him to return to the Liquidators for this next year, but we'll have to find out. And now we get to our first free agent, Josh Jacobs, true free agent. He's probably the best on the market at the moment, considering the top four names could potentially find their way back onto their respective teams. It's not impossible. But Josh Jacobs is right now the best free agent available. Be interesting to see what contract he gets. I think he's got like 2 more years left on his deal with the Packers. Maybe they draft somebody, but he is by far and away the best available, just production wise. And then next on the list, I've got Rico Dowdle and Joe Mixon, kind of in this like little tier, I guess. Mixon, that freak injury, if he's fully healthy, then I don't see why anyone would expect him to not get right back to what he was doing, or maybe even if it's at a little worse of a clip, having a year off, that does a lot for your body, I'm sure. And then Rico Dowdle, actually put up really good numbers for the Panthers. Rico Dowdle, however, is still owned by the Liquidators, so Chase could sign him back for a much cheaper deal than he could McCaffrey or Henry. Ramondre Stevenson is next. He got cut by Cam, but he's next on this list. And after the Super Bowl performance, it wasn't spectacular, but I'm sure the Patriots will be right back in the mix next year anyways. And I'm sure Ramondre will be a part of that unless Henderson takes a bigger leap. We got some other older guys, Alvin Kamara and James Conner. Kamara is currently owned by Unicorn, and then Conner is owned by Flynn. Both have pretty crazy prices relative to probably what they can bring to teams at the stage of this career, so I'm assuming that they will get dropped, and then someone might pick them up in the auction. J.K. Dobbins, Jordan Mason, Aaron Jones, Toledo Pollard, some other names. I think Morgan owns like 3 of those, and then Allen owns Pollard. Just other names that could be relevant. I'm not listing the bottom feeders. Nobody has time to hear me rant about the bottom feeders. I'm gonna scroll over here a bit more. I've got a wide receiver. Number 1 is Chris Olave, and knowing what I know about Unicorn, I'm not expecting Chris Olave to hit the market. But he would be the number 1, in my opinion, free agent wide receiver out there for fantasy purposes. But I doubt that Unicorn's going to let him walk. Next up, T. Higgins, currently owned by Rudy Was Offsides. I don't really know if Higgins would get re-signed. His price isn't like ridiculous, but it's not that great. Probably could get him cheaper in the vet auction, but we'll see if he wants to at least get the RFA rights on him to see if he can get him back for cheaper potentially. Terry McLaurin next on that list. Been a consistent receiver his whole career until last year, which was kind of just a dumpster fire for the Commanders. So have to expect that he's going to be back in the mix to be like a serviceable asset. DK Metcalf is next. Unicorn owns his rights still. However, his Y1OR cost is like in the 120s or 160s, and Metcalf's probably not worth that price at this stage in his career. Tyreek Hill is next. Who knows if he's even going to be able to play after his injury. Still crazy explosive speed, and apparently wants to reunite with Mahomes and the Chiefs, and that'd be interesting to see if that happens. Could be a good value. If I think I own him actually, I own his rights, so we'll see what I want to do come closer to March. Khalil Shakir, Michael Pittman, a couple other names. Shakir is just a straight free agent. K-Migs dropped him. Um, Shakir's not like all that great for fantasy though, just like a wide receiver 3. So he might not fetch a pretty penny, depending on. I mean, Bills might even draft receiver too. Michael Pittman could find a good landing spot. I think he's a free agent in the league too. Still a pretty good wideout. Mike Evans, wonder if he stays back with Tampa Bay. Rick cut his ass, but Rick could probably buy him back. Someone else might buy him back for cheap. Um, 32 years old, I think, so like twilight of his career. Stephon Diggs, Rashee Rice, DJ Moore, these guys. Rashee Rice is still with the Liquidators. I believe Diggs is just a free agent at this point, and then DJ Moore is with Allen, but probably not going to get re-signed based on the Y1R price. Diggs might just be done. Sure, he may play another year with the Pats, but I don't. I mean, after the Super Bowl, he was locked up all game. Romeo Dobbs, Jerry Jeudy, a couple other names. Not anything too consequential or significant. I believe Flynn still owns Judy's rights and Allen owns Dobbs' rights. But Dobbs might be, if he gets re-signed by Green Bay, might have some more serviceable years left in him. And then moving on to tight ends, Mark Andrews probably the number 1 on this list, just because of his ties to Lamar Jackson. But we'll have to see how that new regime in Baltimore works out. Goddard would be number 2, but again, Eagles might move on from him. They were trying to move on from him last year, brought him back. I don't see why they would, because Goddard and Hurts have a great connection, and Goddard has always been a pretty consistent fantasy asset. Not like, blowing up spike weeks galore like Kittle or Kelsey, in their primes, but still a serviceable tight end 1 for sure. And I believe both of those guys are free agents, not tied to any team right now. And then moving on to the next one, we have Travis Kelsey, who is still tied to the Liquidators. They still own his rights. But if Kelsey plays one more year, and he does not get signed back by Chase and he hits the market, then I'm hard pressed to think he would be any worse than like tight end 12. Juwan Johnson is the next on the list. I believe K-Migs still owns his rights. Pretty cheap too, considering how well that Saints offense played down the stretch with Tyler Shuck. George Kittle is next. George Kittle and Hunter Henry. Kittle tore his Achilles, so I don't know when he's going to return. By next, it is this year, but by next football season. Unicorn owns his rights, but it's like a 55 Y1R cost. Not sure if it'd be affordable. Hunter Henry for Allen, pretty cheap, I think. Could actually get re-signed because I think Hunter Henry's got at least a couple more good years left in him and is a favorite target of Drake May. TJ Hawkinson is next. Unicorn owns his rights as well. But I believe Hawkinson might not be what he once was, especially if the Vikings don't improve at QB. And I think our last tight end that I had on here was David Njoku, who is still technically owned by Brownout. But, unless Harold Fannin he already kind of did break out his rookie year, unless, if they let Njoku go, maybe Njoku finds a different team. Still an athletic monster, still could probably produce. But we'll see what K-Migs decides to do there. All right, so about a 14-minute video, just talking about some of the free agents and what that looks like, just so you guys have your heads wrapped around the type of talent, the type of players that'll be in on this vet auction. Keep in mind, my list is probably going to be irrelevant in 2 weeks because maybe half these players get signed. Maybe they don't. Maybe every single one walks to the vet auction and then we just bid it out from there. But I did want to get this video out just so you guys could just keep that in mind and be thinking, because it's probably like one of those deadline driven things where people are trying to wait until like last minute. But I think we might see more action last week of February. Everyone's waiting to get that last bit of news. Hopefully not everybody spams myself and Blind at 11:59 on the last day of the month, because then we'd have a crazy the next few days. But we're used to that. We've been doing this league for 4 years, so every single offseason is a blast. And we're happy to continue doing this with you guys. So anyway, thank you.